All right, guys, welcome to the Ash, Hubert, and Kevin Pod. We are the Accountdads, the podcast for the finance and accounting leaders, the strategizers, the thinkers, and the doers. Now, we are the Ash, Hubert, and Kevin Pod, but today we're just the Ash and Kevin Pod. Hubert's actually away in the United States of America brokering a peace deal, we've heard. No, he's just there with his wife and his kids, visiting his wife's family. We do miss him. Ash, how are you going, buddy?
Yeah, going to far, so good. By yourself?
Good, mate. You keeping warm in these cold days up in the leafy suburbs of the hills?
Mate, I've got a puffer jacket on, long sleeve, trackies, yeah, all of it. So how about yourself? How's it?
Nice, mate.
How's West coming for you?
Yes, I am enjoying winter's my favorite season. I think I love breathing in the winter air. I was up in the Hunter Valley the other weekend, and I was just thinking, this is such a better experience because it's cold outside and you can actually feel the freshness of the air in your lungs.
Today was windy and crisp, right? Like you had that fresh air breeze coming through the whole time. I went for a walk and I was like, man, this is refreshing, right? So
nothing like
beautiful.
It. You enjoy it more better than a 35, 40 degree day. As much as the pommies and the backpackers who come here prefer. I prefer the colder weather. Ash, we've got some meaty things to discuss in this week's episode. I think one of the first things I want to start off with is this CA talent report. So how this came about was in the recent immigration stats, there was a report that the Chartered Accountants body put out, and they had some stats about the shortages in certain occupations in the accounting field. And when we as a group dug into the report, there were some things that we didn't completely agree with, to put lightly. And I thought it would be great for us to essentially share the essence of this report with the people who are listening to this podcast to see if they agree with the findings of this report. Because essentially what this report is trying to do, they use the stats from this report to push it to the government to say, hey, we actually need more of this type of skilled labor. And I do agree there's a lot of types of accountant roles where we do need more talent into the country, things like professional services, supporting audit in particular. You know, we hear from our good buddies in the audit field where they need some of that help. But I want to share this, Ash. So let's actually dive into this report together. I'm going to share my screen and we'll go through this. So, all right, Ash. This report's dated. You can see this, right?
Yep.
Dated the 14th of March, 2025. The essence of this report is a 2025 occupation shortage list stakeholder survey. Now, let's just go straight to the survey results and the findings, all right? And I want you to jump in, Ash, for things that look a bit funny to you. So first point in this report is the vacancy fill rates are lowest for financial investment advisors at 29%, finance managers at 37%, management accountants at 45%, and taxation accountants at 59%. Now, which ones surprise you and which ones do you probably agree with?
The finance managers and management accountants definitely stick out. Management accountants, I mean, they're generally relabeled most of the time now as business partners as such. So, and I think most companies that I've worked for, those roles get snapped up really quickly.
Yeah.
In terms of finance managers, I've not seen a finance manager ad stick out for so long where I've come back and said, oh, wow, that's a really low fill rate. Mm-hmm. Tax, probably a bit more specific, and it makes sense for me, and the financial investment advisors probably make sense as well. But finance managers and management accountants, yeah, definitely stick out. How about yourself?
Yeah, I think the tax accountant, I actually saw a stat today someone put up where there's a very low percentage of taxation accountants under the age of 30. And they were essentially saying there's going to be this talent problem where a lot of the taxation accountants, particularly the ones who know their stuff, who are over the 45 age bracket. And so it means there's kind of a dearth in talent coming through who can support that industry. And so I do get that being a shortage, which we're calling out for. So I've got a couple of problems with this, right? So tax accounting is asking people to come into the country to fill up these roles. The essence of it is, though, you want them to train up in Australian tax law. And so, you know, I don't know if we're kind of looking at this problem the wrong way. And I know the CA is trying to address this with younger people coming through school, high school and uni as well to tap into these accounts. But like you said, if we jump into the finance manager and management accounting route, let's go twofold. Let's start with management accountants.
Yeah.
I want you to play devil's advocate with me. If you are a hiring manager, hiring for a management accounting role, you put an ad out, you get, as is the experience for most hiring managers at the moment, about 300 people applying to an ad. 80% of that is, essentially people from overseas, new to the country, don't have rights, visa rights or work rights. The 20% that you do have, you're trying to sift through them for the traits you need in the management accounting role.
Yep.
Now, are those traits something that can be taught through a professional body like the CA, or are you looking for different types of experience or certain social traits or certain types of critical thinking that you can't really teach from, a university or a professional body? Like, what would you use to?
Which side are you going for this argument? I've got arguments for both.
Well, give me devil's advocate on both sides.
So, can you learn this from a professional body? Some of those skills, yeah, absolutely can. Right? If you made the course more practical with real life examples, yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt. And how I can draw that comparison is I've done an MBA that had a practical example, like for each of those trimesters. So we had to actually work with a real life client, solve a real life problem, and then apply the skill, like sort of the subjects that we had against that. So it was a real life application to a client. Then that client would then use whatever product or report or whatever it is that we built for them, and we'd actually present that out as well. So that actually allowed us to really develop what was going on, and we get to have, once again, real life experience. Now, the flip side of that is if we just remain in the current realm of read a textbook, get examined, answer those questions in a very, theoretical basis, then no, you can't, right? You'll never get that. And that's what we've always seen even with the university disconnect, right? Because as soon as you start your job, the first thing is like, when I was working and studying, my first boss went, whatever you've learned in uni, he's like, forget it. He's like, we'll just teach you here. So the university component was, while it was mandatory to have, everything you had to learn on the job.
Yeah.
And so I've had both now experiences of that, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. How about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with. I was actually thinking of the MBA one as well. I was wording that question because I remember the value you found out of the practical examples that you got, and it's a easy way for. In saying this as well, like there's case studies and stuff that the CA do have in their courses, so I'm totally discounting it. But I love that the MBA, like you've said, gave you kind of real life world examples, and you're actually live solving a problem, which a customer or business that you've helped out will potentially use. I think that's where the value kind of comes through. And also with management accountants, I feel like there's a blend of, you spoke about that being finance business partnering. I think when we were coming through the ranks, this role was more, building the people, the stakeholder management skills, the people social skills, as well as the accounting and finance skills. But now there's an additional layer of like data and insights, and there's a whole different like tech layer that's now patched onto this that I'm not sure if talent from overseas coming through will be trained on. Because I do feel, we're probably boosting the Australian horn a bit strongly here, but I do feel our education system is much more equipped to train people coming through to actually help businesses solve problems in the management, accounting, and finance business partner world. So again, don't know if that's going to help, but that's just me being critical of if we think that international talent can solve this problem for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like when you go back to the case studies, dealing with a retrospective case study, like that's all well and good, but like as you know in business, like nothing is a perfect case study, right? Like you sort of, the point in time where you get a case study, like it's already happened, we sort of know the decisions, but when you're doing something live in that environment and you're trying to figure things out from scratch and trying to go ask those questions, that's something you have to learn, and that's something a case study is simply not going to provide you, right? So
yeah, that's right. And if we go to finance managers, Ash, so this is now a bit more of a senior role, and a type of role where you actually want people with local experience, local understanding of industry, as well as kind of relatability almost with a business owner or with a business or with peers within the business. And this is another role that I find it hard to believe that there's a shortage in Australia for. And I wonder if, there's a whole heap of conspiracies you can go down, but I wonder if this is, again, we were talking about this before, the challenge of businesses to find talent, and if the recruitment system is broken or if there's an actual shortage of people to put in these roles in the country. What's your thoughts?
Combination. So, okay, is the recruitment system broken? Possibly. The reason why I say that, let's say we've got a good, what's underneath a finance manager? Let's say a finance assistant or an accountant, a senior accountant, let's say, senior accountant. Let's say you've got a good senior accountant, worked a few years, and they're willing to take a step up. Sometimes those opportunities aren't there because what the recruitment sort of cycle looks at is we want someone that's got finance manager experience. We don't want to take a punt on a young and up and coming person, just depending on the organization. So that sometimes gets discounted. And so what we're looking for is going, and then we've got that traditional, hey, we've got this person, this senior financial accountant has come out of a really big enterprise, therefore they can work in a much smaller company, but in a much higher capacity. I've also heard that sort of ridiculous comparison as well. But what you're going to realize is when you're a person that works for a really large company, they've usually got things like processes and things in place. Whereas a person that's come out from a small company, they're doing end to end. They're running around, they're picking up the phones, they're doing this. They don't have that one task to do all day. They're doing everything. And so you come back and say, well, how do you differentiate or how do you compare these various candidates? And obviously either a machine or a person is making a call. And the top finance recruiters that we've seen personally, they've had those finance backgrounds. They understand what the client's trying to after and what they're trying to do. But a lot of the time, we've just seen people come out of school and come out of whatever, and they've become recruiters, and they're just taking a punt, literally going, we think this person's a good fit. So I think that's a really tough thing to see.
Yeah.
In terms of, I suppose, like you're talking about international talent, this really depends on the customer and the client, right? Like I've had times where I just need the books to be closed types of customers, right?
Yeah.
All I need is a solid financial accountant that comes in, does it, gives it no fuss, just rolls up their sleeves, knocks it out, just keeps going. That in itself is fine. But if you're after sort of like a mini CFO level where you're trying to do everything and you're trying to be the people person, you're trying to do the budgets, you're trying to be the forecast, you're trying to talk to the general managers, and everything's not, crystal clear, you're operating in the gray a lot of the times.
Yeah.
That's a very different role. And once again, they get labeled the same thing, finance manager. But, you don't know which version of that you're going to get. Is it the guy that's just closing the books, or are you getting the whole, hey, we need you to call these 50 customers up and sort out why debts aren't being paid. And we then also need you to figure out how you're going to manage your team.
Yeah.
So it really depends on what that type of role is. But, yeah. How about yourself?
Yeah, I agree with those points. So basically what you're saying is either the business doesn't understand what they want. They're trying to find this kind of unicorn that does everything without being specific about the problem they need to solve in their business through this role. And that's often, you hire a finance manager, but there's usually an area you want to focus on. Is it, I want this finance manager to be process savvy so they can help bring in all my finance processes, manage it, and help me close a month end? Do I want a more technical accounting finance manager to come in and help us, technically think through these problems? Do I want an industry-specific type of finance manager? So that's a business definition of what they want in the role, which they might be getting wrong. To summarize your other points too, could be, actual recruitment service problem. So the actual recruiters could have a lack of experience or lack of understanding in terms of identifying that need, and that's where the process is falling through. It could actually be recruitment systems. So you think about things like LinkedIn Recruiter or Seek or these ATS tools or anything that we have access. Sometimes when you use those processes, you're actually, almost not relying on the things that you might look for in a finance manager. Things like soft skills and stuff don't actually come out through that process. And so I agree with all those. I think, I find it hard to believe that there is a shortage in finance managers. I reckon there's probably a shortage in certain areas or regional areas or particular cities. But I think overall, if there is a finance manager shortage, if you think about a pipeline, like a marketing pipeline, we have so many accountants coming through uni. They then go through a professional body like CA or CPA. And if we're still having a shortage in that finance manager range, it means there's a gap happening between those accountants not being equipped, not being trained, or not having the experience, or maybe not even having the will or the curiosity or the critical thinking to go beyond that range where they can lead people or lead processes or take ownership of stuff through a managerial role. So that's probably a couple of problems that I reckon if the CA is trying to address, they need to think through more deeply than saying, hey, we need more people to come in. I know you had a little bit of a conspiracy there, Ash, on why you think they're marketing some of these roles to come in.
No. But no, I think, look, if you're talking about, like, suppose, and our challenge was, like, for you and me, once you go through university, go through a program of a professional accreditation, and then you go get your job, and the first move you make, sort of like out of practice as such, that's the industry you sort of get labelled as, and so then going cross industry is bloody difficult.
Yeah, that's right.
And so that's another thing that, like, once I go into professional services, if I go then try to get an FMCG job or a financial services job, they go, oh, we don't want you. We want someone that's got this specific background.
Yeah.
But you come back and say, well, at what point do you come back and say, well, I've got a CA, therefore I'm versatile all around, or a CPA versus nothing, right? Like, that's a really hard delineation that I've got there. Yeah.
Yeah, and that again is coaching the hiring manager, right? And for some reason, a lot of hiring managers are still stubborn with that. Given that a lot of these industries are pretty easy to understand, and maybe it's easy to understand, once you get a bit more experience in your role. But I reckon at some of these levels, you're probably putting yourself an advantage hiring people from other industries. They'll be bringing new ideas, new thoughts, new processes, new ways of thinking into your business, which I think is pretty valuable.
100%.
And so, yeah, I totally agree with that. Some of the other points, Ash, so things we do agree, tax accountants, some of those junior accounting roles, even things like roles like auditors, I agree that, if there is a shortage, those are easy roles to look overseas for. And again, you prefer like university, people come through university to fill these roles. Or I actually got the CA magazine today, and one of their initiatives in the next plan is to enable placing high school students, post high school, straight into accounting firm roles without having to do a uni degree. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but again, that's an easy way to get people into the industry without some of these additional barriers, and then to see if they like it. And roles like auditors, I think, you having gone through the audit process as well as me, I feel like audit roles are pretty simple to, firstly, help you gain an understanding of a business very quickly, because that's one of the skills I really value about being an auditor. But the second thing is there's an easy methodology to follow depending on the firm you work for. It's literally a guide given for you to say, hey, do this, do this, do this. And then, there's a very robust review process to help you learn and understand what you're doing as well. And so I think that's an easy, if international talent is sought there, then I agree with that as well. We talked about these skilled roles, Ash, they touch on it again. They say there's an severe undersupply of suitably skilled workers in management accountants, finance managers, financial advisors, and taxation accountants. But what it sounds like is there is a consistent demand for accounting roles, particularly certain types of accounting roles across Australia. Is that kind of reflective of what you see in the market? Because all I see from most people I talk to is the market's tight. There's not as many roles going around. It's essentially saturated with supply, not enough demand. And I feel like we're talking to people that say that, but then we look at reports like this and we think, where are all the jobs in then, if that's the case? Is that what you're seeing too?
I'm seeing sort of more mid to junior roles, a lot of those. But then I'm seeing obviously way more saturation with the mid to senior and very, like when I say executive style role. So it's at that point in time, they become very picky. But at that first front, you got, like you were saying before, 300 people applying, one gets successful. You got 299 people now looking for a job, right? But if we're taking those stats of, let's say, 20%, 1 out of the 60 get a job, and that pool continues to grow because some people are just dabbling and some people actually want to, so when they say dabbling, they're just applying for the job. Then they might be currently happy, or some people actually actively, out of work and they're trying to look for something new. So we just don't know what that sort of looks like. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm just scanning now towards the end of this. There is some good stuff that they have in here as well. So they're advocating for, I guess, two things: the government to address two particular gaps on top of bringing supply in. So one is this training gap. They want to focus on quality in terms of accounting migrants coming through to the country. I don't know how they're going to do that, but I don't know if there's a test or something that they're planning to implement. So, implement quality, support more schools to offer accounting subjects, and introduce a robust national senior secondary accounting curriculum, and lowering student loan repayments through changes to HECS, replacing the job ready graduates package. I like the accounting subjects for school. I've always thought about why we didn't learn things like tax and basic simple accounting at school. And I was actually saw something online where they were like, you did learn tax, you learned compound interest and math and stuff. But I was like, if people told me that this was going to be relevant to my working life and my tax life, I would have paid more attention to maths. But that's not how it's sold. You just taught maths for the sake of maths rather than saying, hey, this is how you can actually practically apply this once you start getting a job.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that makes perfect sense. I think the context in school was definitely missing with a lot of things. Like, do you remember like all those various triangles we used to draw and stuff? And some of that's super useful if you're an engineer, right? Like, because those angles and stuff are really critical when you're trying to put like a roof on and all that sort of stuff. At the time when you're a kid and you've got no interest, you're just trying to pass that next test.
Yeah.
So you have to repeat another subject. And in terms of like, I suppose going back to that first area of like quality versus quantity, I suppose that's where someone like the institute will then facilitate a program going, oh, they must pass our, program then to ensure that quality and all that sort of stuff, right? So you can obviously see how they're trying to, weave themselves into this whole area.
Yeah. But anyway, great report. I thought, it's good, some good insights in here. There's a particular number of appendixes that kind of outline how they got some of this data, talks in detail around the vacancies, fill rates, and problems that they articulate in this report that I recommend, every accountant kind of jump in and read. We'll share this on our YouTube page as well. Ash, a couple of things that I've been chatting with businesses about is how to incentivize people in their businesses. So one of the things I have loved about the businesses we work for together, but as well in some of the other businesses that I've worked for, is that they've had really good commission schemes or bonus schemes to incentivize everyone in the business to work towards a common goal. There's a couple of ways businesses can do this, but maybe tell us, Ash, like you work for a couple of businesses yourself, why is this important to have across the whole business? Because you go to a lot of businesses and sales roles, as an example, will just have commission schemes, but no one else has it. But I think you work for some good organizations which have had it all throughout for every role. Tell us why this is important. Give us, I remember you telling me a story of one of the companies you work for and how everyone was working towards the same goal because everyone was incentivized, in the same way. So how powerful is that for an organization?
Yeah. So it's worked out really well for one of the organizations that I work for. So they had a global profit sharing model, which meant basically everyone gets a piece of the pie, right? If you're a permanent employee based on some tenure and etc. But that was the first time I've ever been in, like, let's say, a finance role where we weren't arguing with, let's say, the engineers in this case, right? We weren't being like, oh, hey, your numbers are wrong and this, that, oh, you're meant to do this. We were like going, hey, you've got a problem. Your problem is now my problem. We're in it together.
Yeah.
Let's both get on a collective, like get on the same page. Let's try to help each other out. And let's try to get the most optimal way out of it. You know, the egos went out of the room. It was just going, hey, look, that's a problem. Hey, look, if we can increase profitability, that's better for all of us. The more money you guys make, the more money we make. So everyone got really on board with that. But it wasn't just about making money. It was also about helping other teams, cross-collaboration. You got then also cross-collaboration with different departments within there, but also countries as well. Because a different country may come back and say, hey, we've got this particular problem. Now, if it's global profit share, as an example, I'm talking this is quite a large company, then you're also incentivized to help that other country out, because you come back and say, hey, if we're going great and they've shot down, we're not going to get paid bonus because they're underperforming. So let's deploy some resources. Let's try to get the optimal, you know, balance right, so we can actually get through this properly, and vice versa. Like, you know, if we've got some really big projects going on and, you know, in other countries, let's say, not performing that well, can we deploy some of their engineers across here so we can actually utilize them rather than going to external consultants? So it was a really different way of looking at it. Whereas traditionally I've just seen, you know, like, hey, we're a country, we operate completely solely by ourselves. We go to a bigger global remit and it's up yours, right? Like, we run our own business our own way. I don't care what the other country's doing. It's a different market, blah, blah, blah. If finance come and start challenging numbers, it's always like, your numbers are wrong, my numbers are wrong, like, get out of here, you don't know what you're talking about. And it's the first time I actually sat down, I'm like, wow, everyone's so aligned. It's like, it's ridiculous how much everyone wanted to help each other and sat down and genuinely cared. It was the first time I've seen that. So.
Yeah, maybe you're just working in a business with good people, Ash. That's probably
maybe it
the
was,
other
mate.
difference.
Yeah, but it was when I saw that, I was like just shocked for a while. I was like, is this normal? Like, yeah. So, but it wasn't just rewarding sales. I think it was, you know, if you've got finance, HR, everyone in it together, IT, they're all the people that support the backbones, and they're usually the ones that never get any of that cut, right?
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
I think everyone felt recognized as well, going, hey, you're also contributing to this. And I think that's what also then created that sense of belonging.
Yeah, and ultimately that's what's valuable, right? Because businesses think, oh, if I put a pizza on every second Friday for my IT team, that'll help them feel recognized. While, you know, your sales team in the other corner is getting, you know, champagne bottles and bonuses every quarter and stuff. I think that's what, you know, you're talking about in a commission scheme like that. It helps everyone feel aligned, feel seen, and feels like they are all working towards the same goal. Let's go into a couple of different types of these incentive schemes. Ash, you just spoke about kind of a global profit share model. It's also similar to kind of a profit pool that some, you know, small to medium businesses can have as well. Essentially, you know, it's when a business can say, at the end of the year, X% we'll hold aside, and, you know, if you have something written into your contract, or potentially everyone might have that, then a certain percentage will go towards you based on that profit pool. Is that how you guys had it done in that previous place as well?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. So, like, you'd have a profit target to get to. If everyone hit it, yeah, every single eligible employee would get some.
Yeah.
And they'd be based on role seniority plus sort of your tenure as well. So they had rankings on both.
Yeah. Nice. I'll take us through some others, Ash, and maybe you can tell us, because you're good at articulating this, what type of roles these type of schemes are best for, what behaviors this incentivizes, and some of the risks that, you know, business owners or leaders might want to watch out for.
Yeah, sure.
So let's go to the next one. We just went through profit pool. You've had it in a business which has covered everyone. Let's go to one where bonus is based on a budget that they might set at the start of the year. So at the start of the year, the leaders might get up and say, hey, this is our budget for the year. We've got EBIT, EBITDA, or net profit or whatever of X amount. If we hit this, then we're all eligible to earn a bonus, which is usually a percentage of our salary or percentage of something if we hit our budget. Have I articulated that right, Ash? Who's that good for? What does this incentivize, and what are the risks?
Yeah, sure. So if you're talking about just like on achieving a budget, usually we're talking about like a revenue figure. Like a cost saving target's generally harder to articulate and harder to pay out on, right? Because you've actually not spent that money. So why would you pay out an extra bonus on that as well, right? So so like in this case, let's try to stick more on, like, let's say the actual, like, hey, you've hit your target, everything's all good. What I've found it's really good for, you know, your operations teams and your, like, you know, your sales teams.
Yeah.
But what happens is you're willing to sort of cannibalize things trying to get a deal across. Say, hey, I know I can sign this deal and I know I can drop my margin. Let's say it's based on revenue. I want to drop my margin so I can get this huge deal across. And that's going to then smash the next like few years worth of financials. But in this case, I've hit my bonus because I've hit my budget, right? So I don't need to worry about anything else. And you got to really like go, let's not just base it on, let's say, revenue, or let's just not just base it on margin. Like you might have a combination trying to get it most optimally work. But if you have it just on one, you'll see people play the game very quickly.
Yeah.
And some of those short-term decisions have a massive, massive ramification later.
Yeah, it's good. And you talk about people playing the game. That's one thing to watch out for, right? And any of these schemes is seeing if some of these behaviors can actually incentivize people to do unhelpful things for your business. And one of the ways you can actually do this is this next bonus scheme. So if we talk about leads or revenue related bonus schemes, we actually saw this in the recruitment world, or you'll even see this in professional services a lot. So this is just, you earn a bonus based on the money you bring in or the revenue you bring in or the leads you bring in. Who's this suitable for, Ash? And who does this incentivize, and what are the pitfalls here?
Yeah. This is purely like your sales like teams, right? Like, and your like professional services sales, like these are like you're trying to sell a product or you're trying to sell a service to somebody. Like that's who it's really geared for, right? And in this case, what you want is just young, hungry salespeople. Like, right, like even real estate agents as an example, right? You're trying to win every piece of work that you can, and you're trying to deliver it to the highest number of revenue that you can get as well. So, you're trying to put everyone against in the ladder. Who can earn the most? Who can build the most? You bring home as much coin as you can. So it's a very transparent scheme. You know exactly how much you're going to build and how much you're going to get. It's not a, hey, I'm going to build $1 million and the next person behind me is going to build 100 grand. And then together we're going to share a 6%, whatever profit. This is individually based. So very, very individual is the main comment from that one. So
Yeah. And you're right. That can kind of breed unhelpful behaviors if not protected. And I guess what we're saying is don't not do it. Just build in, I guess, controls to ensure that you're protecting your business and protecting the fact that people could potentially take advantage of this.
yeah, absolutely.
Equity. Have you ever seen equity given out in bonus schemes, Ash?
Not from personal experience, but yeah, I've sort of heard about it where, like, I say equity, I'm going to give this on like share-based payments almost, like as in companies giving shares. I've seen that happen as well. It seems good from from the instance. The tax treatment aside, I'll get into that a bit later, but like if someone comes like and says, hey, you performed well, I'm going to give you some shares, that's always nice, right? Because now you've got some ownership of that company as well. You can obviously, sell that whenever you want. So yeah, it does feel nice, and you can get that to the market value, and that sort of like sticks in your book. So I think it's quite nice to have. Once again, it's that sense of belonging, right? So it does achieve all that.
Yeah.
And it's trying to get everyone aligned to that one company. Have you had experience with that one before?
I haven't seen. I remember when we first joined. Both of us were at the recruitment firm that we were working for, and they were listed in America. I remember there were shares for a lot of the execs then. So that's the only time I've been exposed to something like that. And even then, I was thinking it's just so ambiguous because you're kind of volatile and you're exposed to the market much more, and so you're kind of almost trying to, and not that this was done, but you're almost trying to ensure that your financials, especially as a finance commercial professional, lines up to not sway the overall price, which in turn might sway the value of the shares or the equity that you have in the business. So I guess it does drive you to provide value for your business and drive you to protect, talk about value creation, value protection for your business. But ultimately, you don't want this to breed unhelpful behaviors as well. I think when we're talking about the shares one, actually, I thought to examples I've seen where they've had vesting periods to ensure retention, or even vesting periods with bonuses. Like, you only get this if you stay past this point, or if you. And so there's certain protections you can put in there to ensure retention. Again, I think it's important for, if you're designing this, to think about what the purpose of this is. Like, am I doing this to retain people? Am I doing this to drive sales? Am I doing this to protect profit and increase profitability? Like, there's all these different drivers which you need to kind of start off from which you can build incentive schemes. And I think if you just do, something because your neighbor or your competitor is doing it, it might not be suitable for your business because your business is going through a different direction or targeting different goals. And I think the other one is also timing. We've seen, particularly in those revenue types of incentive schemes, if your salespeople aren't hitting their targets, they might just be like, oh, okay, I might hold all this until my next period when I'm getting paid and bulk it all in there because I know I'm not going to hit my targets this month anyway. So I'm going to, smash it next month and earn it at 150%. And so there's all these ways that people can manipulate. And we're not saying people are, snakes. Essentially, human behavior is to maximize your earnings. And so you want to try and protect your business while also ensuring your staff feel well looked after. And that's where the value of us as finance professionals come in, right? Like this is where we should be able to see things and help our leaders or business owners. This is where I guess finance intersects with things like HR. You talk about building, scorecards or bonus schemes, brings in data, finance data, HR, commercial lenses. There's a legal aspect to things like this as well. And it just goes to show how our role actually touches various different corporate functions, but also the operational and sales side as well. So it's really important for us as finance professionals to be fully equipped, fully skilled, and close to the business so we understand the true business problems instead of just sitting on spreadsheets the whole day. Guys, if you've liked this episode, you like this video, send us some of your thoughts as well based on the CA report or any other creative incentive schemes you've seen, which we can share with everyone else on this pod as well. But as you can see, we ooze finance. We love this stuff. We love helping business owners and we love dabbling and finding out different things in the industry to help everyone with. So we are the Accountdads. This is the Ash, Hubert and Kevin podcast, or just the Ash and Kevin podcast today. Thanks for listening, guys, and we'll catch you on the next episode.